Hi everyone, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. I wanted to welcome you to our Mental Health Matters panel for Global GEG. We're here today to talk about a really important subject. We're going to talk about mental health. This came about because I've been running staff rooms for Global GEG since lockdown began in March to try and support teachers and people involved in education with their mental health. And I came to realise that lots of people had stories they wanted to share, and lots of people benefited from hearing a shared story. So I spoke to some of the lovely people in Global GEG and asked if anyone would be interested in working with me. And this panel was born. So today there are three of us. We're going to talk about our personal mental health. Hopefully we won't overwhelm you too much. And then we're going to give you a chance to ask us any questions you might have. And then from the back of that, I'm going to be launching my new website, Mental Health in Education, which can be found at www.mentalhealthineducation.com. And that is live now. And my aim is to upload a story a day to that. So if you have a mental health story you want to share, please do. There's a form on the website, and we'll be sharing the form to submit your story later today. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce our moderator for today's talk, which is Stephanie Rothstein. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I was very honored when Kat asked me to moderate this panel, and I feel lucky to be here. And just a little bit of background, and then I'll bring you all in right now. I'll bring in our panelists here. So my background is, and if you have it open, panelists, if you have it open in another screen, you might want to pause or mute that. I don't think that's from me.
There is a slight echo there.
There is a slight echo there. Just making sure everybody's good. My other screen is muted. So I just wanted to say hello and thank you for having me. My name is Stephanie Rothstein, and I have the pleasure of being one of the founders of Global GEG and knowing Kat through staff room and many other places. And it is an honor to be here with people who are going to be so open and sharing their perspectives and their own background. So my goal in being here is to be an empathetic listener. I do not suffer from anything related in mental health. It doesn't mean that I don't know people or have had students who have not, but it isn't my own personal story. So my goal here is to be an empathetic listener, and that means to really listen openly and to learn from that. And I'm not here to try to fix or change anything of the panelists. I'm just here to listen and to help guide us all, and hopefully listening even more and learning from their stories. And as we go through today's panel, each person is going to be sharing pieces. We'll go through one by one. They'll introduce themselves soon enough. But we will pause and have some times for us in the audience maybe to type some pieces in. But if we really are listening, then we're really listening when they're sharing. And then we'll take some time to say some things of our own. But when they're talking, if you want to support them, you certainly can. But sharing our own perspectives will come at the end of each question. So with that, we'll begin with just some introductions about who you are and what brought you here to the panel today. So maybe Darren, if you'd like to go first on that one.
Yeah, I can go first. Hi everyone, my name's Darren, at Ranger the Trainer on Twitter. I am coming up to 45. I'm a dad to a 16-year-old at the moment, and I am obviously husband as well, and EdTech lead for 2 large academies in Essex in the UK, part of a trust of 58 schools, Google certified trainer, innovator, various other bits and pieces, keen sportsman, and personally I suffer with particularly social anxiety, but anxiety in general, which is diagnosed, and have had bouts of depression in the past as well. That's me.
Thank you, Darren. Natalie? Natalie, are you there?
Yeah. Sorry.
You're okay. We see you. We hear you. You can just talk to us.
I had to turn my volume down. So hi, I'm Natalie. I'm a teacher in a secondary school. I am subject lead for computer science. I'm a mother, a wife, and I think that's it.
Is there anything in particular that brought you to this, being on this panel today?
Well, I'm friends with Kat, or I'd like to think I'm friends with Kat. And well, we are open and honest with each other, and she's known that I've struggled with stress from school and mental health to deal with some of my students, just general anxiety. And so she's asked me to share, and I'm okay with that because I'm not ashamed.
Thank you so much, Natalie. And then Kat to round.
Yeah, I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning, which was rather foolish of me. I'm Kat. I was a primary school teacher for 11 years. Now I train teachers and students in using educational tools in computer science. I'm a mother to a 13-month-old, which turns out is hard work. They're tiring. Small people are tiring. Who knew? And I was a teen, so for 18 years. I was first diagnosed 18 years ago. I suspect it may have been a bit longer than that, but who knows? And also definitely aspects of anxiety and imposter syndrome. So that's me.
Thank you all for sharing. We're going to start to move into our questions in just a second, but I wanted to give, normally as we have these chats, people have shared in the chat as well. So you are more than welcome to, if you haven't already, to put who you are in the chat. If there's something that you want to share that brought you here to this panel today, you are more than welcome to put that in the chat as a comment as we move through. And I just want to say thank you to everybody that is here for sharing and being brave enough to be here to share and to share so openly before we even begin. It's really much appreciated. And we'll be putting up some comments. So if you're putting it in there, just know that we'll be putting in some comments. If you don't want it shared, maybe put that when you type the comment, and we'll know that. But it is PR on YouTube, just FYI. Okay. Yeah. So.
Steph from Rachel.
Okay. Here, let's look at that before we start.
Just asking, what, for those who don't understand, what is imposter syndrome? What does that mean?
Oh, that's a great question. Kat, do you want to answer that one?
Oh, imposter syndrome. I can guarantee that a large proportion of people here watching have suffered from imposter syndrome at least once in their life. There's evidence to suggest it's worse in women, but common for a lot of people. And it basically just is that feeling that you're not good enough, that constant feeling that you don't think you are worthy. So, for example, in November, when I joined the Innovator cohort in Sweden, my first thought on walking into the room was, I'm not good enough to be here. Everyone here is better than me. Everyone here knows what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I'm not really, I shouldn't be here. It was a mistake. And that is a frequent part of my life when I'm invited to do stuff, when I'm involved in stuff. Yeah, and it's a really common one. And I know so many people who have struggled with imposter syndrome. I know on a daily basis, there's always somebody saying, oh my gosh, I don't think I'm good enough for this. In fact, I think Natalie was speaking to me about this. Oh, no, I don't think it's important. My story's not important. She was suffering about imposter syndrome, even talking today. So, yeah, it's a very important one.
Thank you so much. And I think at this point, we're going to move. I was already seeing thank you to those who are putting in your own connection with mental health struggle. Thank you again for being brave enough to share those and put those in the chat. And we'll continue now with the official question one. And so maybe we'll start with Natalie on this one. We're going to go with a different person each time and roundabout. So we'll go Natalie, then Kat, then Darren on this one. Okay, so this first one is, how do you feel when you're struggling? I'm going to fix that question as I realized it needed a little.
Well, it's kind of difficult for me to kind of encapsulate it in a small sentence, because generally I just feel like a fraud all the time, especially in my subject, because in my subject, computer science, is always changing, and I always have to learn new stuff and programming languages change and they add different things to it. And I just feel like I'm a fraud all the time, like someone's going to find out. And unlike, I feel that I have one job. That one job is that these parents have put their children in my care for that period of time during the day. And if I screw it up, that means that their life is screwed up. They don't get jobs, they don't get houses, they might not get the lives that they want. Just, that I will do something that will screw them up and it will be horrendous. And so I take all of that and I internalize it, and then I try and get through the day. And then I have sometimes an unhealthy relationship with the children. Some people say it's unhealthy. I think it's the only way forward, which is to Maslow before you bloom, that you must make sure that their well-being is first and foremost the most important thing. And so I'm the mummy to everybody, to my colleagues, the students, my tutor group, to everybody. And then I take all of their stresses and all of their worries and everything else, and then I internalize it and I tell them exactly what I think they need to hear so that they can get through the day. And then I just kind of carry that around with me. So all the kids that are having trouble at home, all, the teachers who are struggling with behavior or struggling with their line managers or the trainee teachers who are dreaming about school. And I tell them that's never going to stop. But yeah, so there's all of these things that make me feel like a fraud and make me feel like I can't go on. But because I'm being strong for everyone else, I don't have time to stop and address how I'm feeling. So kind of went through 10 years of being like this and just thinking, oh, it's everyday stress. And then a period of time happened where it all came to a head, where a child that I had taught in year 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, and was also in my tutor group. He died over the holiday period in year 13. And when I came back to school, I was feeling bereft and horrible, and my world was collapsing. But everyone else around me needed me to be the rock that I always am, to support them, because he had died. His mother, his sister, all his tutor group, everybody in my tutor group, the kids in the class, no one wanted to sit in his seat. It was really stressful. And I was busily coping with everyone else. Well, I couldn't cope with myself until one day I was trying my best to get through a lesson. And I just fell apart. I kept teaching, but I also cried while I was teaching. I just kept teaching. And then I just kept crying, and I thought, this is not going well. And, there's this kid in the front of my lesson. He was just like, Miss, we get it. It's okay. You're doing a great job. Just keep going. And unbeknownst to me, a kid had left the room and got someone else. And a member of staff came in, and she was like, well, Miss is having a hard time, and maybe you should leave. And I was like, I can get through this. And the kids were like, she's fine. We're gonna protect her. And it was at that moment I realized that actually I couldn't do this by myself. I couldn't do it by myself anymore. And so I've had some therapy, I had some grief counseling, I had some stress management. And now I just I feel really overwhelmed. And sometimes I just need to pause. And that's what I'm learning to do, to pause and to recognize that although I want to be everyone's rock and I want to be there for everyone's mother, sister, friend, confidant, everyone's safe place, that I can't. And I think that's really hard for me, since I've always been that person for everybody. It doesn't matter who you are. And even if I'm not particularly fond of you, if someone says, it's okay, Natalie will help you, and they show up, then I help.
I just want to say thank you so much for sharing right now. And I think in many ways, what you brought up is going to lead us into some of the other questions that are going to come up for today. So if, as we get there, you feel like you've shared something, but there's another piece that you want to add when we go to that question, right on, feel free. But I think that you've helped to start this off in a really deep, powerful, and meaningful way that is personal. And so thank you for that. Kat, do you want to go next?
Yeah, wow. It's really interesting hearing Natalie talk, because I think one of the things you were saying about that feeling like you were responsible for all the children, taking on all their emotions, I think that's so common as an educator. I think that's one of the reasons why many of us go into education, because we're quite empathetic naturally. We want to support our students. And yeah, I know exactly what you mean about that, feeling like you've got to take on all of their problems. And I've seen Natalie with her students, and honestly, she's just so incredible. Just the way she is with her students, the way they respond to her, is amazing to see. But anyway, sorry. So yeah, I've struggled with depression since I was 19. I think it was probably sooner than that, but that was when I had my first major incident. I was hospitalised briefly, medicated. And I just think it's really important to sort of explain, because I think a lot of people don't realise what it feels like to suffer from depression. Most people look at me and see a loud, vibrant, colourful, exciting, don't understand what's going on inside. So when I walk into a room, my first instinct is, nobody here is going to like me. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I should leave. I should go back out again. And then I start getting loud and over the top because I'm so anxious. And that's sort of a symptom of the depression and anxiety, because I'm so nervous and so worried and so stressed that I need to hide it. I need to do something to hide behind. So I put on this persona, which actually has caused people to dislike me because they think I'm a bit annoying. I mean, particularly since lockdown's begun, I've had more depressive incidents than normal. And what happens to me is I sort of start crying a bit about nothing. And then I start to convince myself of untruths. So, for example, I became convinced that a group of people disliked me. And then I started to convince myself being nice to me for no reason. You know, they're just being nice to me to be polite. They didn't actually like me. And I got to the point where I literally just sat on my bed and cried. I was paralyzed by this feeling that people disliked me, and it was all in my head. And I'm very lucky. I've got a really supportive partner. I have a 1-year-old, but I've got someone who can help pick up the slack when I do have these moments. And I just had to lie in my bed, and I couldn't move. I physically couldn't stand up because of the weight of this feeling of sadness that had come out of nowhere. This feeling that nobody really likes me. It's all made up. And what I find amazing and terrifying and saddening is that I can go from feeling absolutely fine one day to an hour later, this paralyzing sadness kicking in. And it just comes out of nowhere, and there is no explanation for it. And for example, when I was pregnant, I was expecting to suffer from depression. I was expecting my hormones to be all over the place. I was fine. But when my dad got ill, I wasn't great. When he actually eventually passed away, I was fine because I knew I was expecting it. I could cope with it. And yeah, it's really difficult. Really, really difficult when you struggle with mental health, because you just never know when it's going to come upon you. And with something like depression, it's horrible, because I get those feelings of I'm not good enough. Nobody would care if I went. Nobody would care if I left. And I know it's not real. I know in the back of my mind that I'm making it up, but it's prevailing. So yeah, that's me. That's my day-to-day life.
Thank you for sharing, Kat. Darren?
Yeah, quite similar experiences and similar feelings to Kat, actually. Although I was only diagnosed in November, when I basically, quite similar to Kat, ended up almost similar to Nat, sorry, sort of hitting a wall in the middle of a lesson because of a whole load of things going on, both in my home life and in school. My wife was really ill and was waiting for an operation at the time. Everybody was kind of getting on me, saying you need to do this, you need to do that, you should be doing this, you should do that. Everybody wanted answers as to what was happening, because it was taking a long time to get the surgery to go ahead, and I couldn't give people answers, and I couldn't make my wife feel any better. The daughter's in year 11, so she was preparing for exams, which obviously didn't happen in the end. But work's really busy as well. So I've been a teacher for 21 years now, and I think the first 10 years, I don't think there was a problem. Then I moved into senior leadership, and I think gradually as that's gone on, I did 10 years as a senior leader in secondary schools, including a short stint as a head of school as well, and quickly decided it wasn't for me because I couldn't be myself. I like to have a laugh and a joke with students. I like to build relationships with the students and with the staff as well. And one of the things I found, I think, being a senior leader was that, in the office amongst your colleagues, and I've had some fantastic colleagues and fantastic head teachers over the years, but you've got to kind of maintain that. Whatever is said in here is one thing, but out there we put on a calm front, whether it's Ofsted and walking through the door, whether it's LEA, whether it's something's happened. We've been through a number of very tragic circumstances as well in school, and you do, just because you're in that situation, you feel like you have to support everybody else. And so I think I've probably done the best part of 12, 13 years of work, and probably longer in the family life, supporting everybody else. And then a few years back, my wife's mother-in-law was diagnosed at 57 with frontal temporal dementia. And that was a very, very rapid decline, a very stressful situation for the whole family. My mother-in-law sadly passed away about 7 or 8 years later, having moved into a home, and she just got to the stage where she couldn't do anything at all, couldn't recognise her. My wife wanted support, but I really felt that I couldn't go and visit the home because I felt, I'm 6'5", I'm a big guy, 17 and a half stone. I felt I scared the other people in the home, and my mother-in-law, because she didn't recognise me, was also scared of me, and I didn't feel that was fair on them. So I didn't go to the home, but then I felt guilt for not going with my wife. And then within 6 months of each other, my mum passed away as well from liver disease. So a really, really difficult time emotionally for all of us. At the same time as schools being schools and goalposts constantly changing, and the way I tend to, I think, to kind of encapsulate how I feel, very similar to Kat, I will, in a school I've been working in the best part of 20 years, I will walk into the staff room. There'll be people in the staff room that I've worked with for 20 years, and something in me will make me sometimes, just for no reason whatsoever, make me do that stupid, I'm just checking my pigeonhole and walk back out again, rather than stop and have a conversation. Just because I'm rubbish at small talk. I really am. I'm not good at holding conversations for the sake of holding conversations. I kind of want to talk for a purpose. And I think when I get nervous, as some of you will probably appreciate, I tend to use humour as a defence mechanism and laugh everything off and make a joke and pretend everything's okay, And I think I managed to do that really well for a long time. And then October, November, people who were brilliant, people around me, friends and family and colleagues who saw through it and said to me, you need to stop, you need to sort this out. And I literally got straight on the phone and called the doctors, and haven't looked back. It's the best thing I've done. But wow, it's been a journey.
So that almost leads right into our next question. Do you mind starting us off on that one, Darren, since I think you were right there, which is what helps you feel less overwhelmed? And then we'll go to Kat after.
Yeah, sure. I was quite fortunate because of lockdown. It made things a little bit easier in terms of attending appointments and stuff, because I wasn't at school anyway. So I was able to go through a course of CBT, which I found really, really useful. And just the processes of stepping outside of the problem and analysing, because I catastrophise, because of the anxiety, I don't like the unexpected. So I will imagine in my head what's the worst thing that could happen, and then plan what I will do in that scenario so that I'm prepared for it, and then I won't be anxious. But of puts it as a counterbalance of actually making you think about it more, which makes you more anxious. So I learned quite a few techniques, and it was actually, if I'm honest, it was just nice to be in a room. It was a group CBT. There was about 10 of us, and about half of us were men. And I think just sitting in the room and just talking and hearing other people talking about their experiences and seeing other men there just made me feel so much better about it, because I've always been a little bit, as a senior leader, you can't show any weakness, otherwise that's it, career's over. As a man, you can't show any weakness because you're expected to be, rightly or wrongly, you're expected to be the rock for everybody else. So that CBT was really useful in terms of starting to manage and stop myself from being overwhelmed. But I make a real point now to step outside, to go and get some fresh air if I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed, to go and have a walk, which I've never done. I've never been a walker. I took up a park run just to give myself something to make me feel like I got up at the weekend and made the most of my weekend. It was the first thing on the Saturday morning, and by 9:30 I was kind of up and about, where I was tending to mope around and kind of not get out of bed, and so things like that. I mean, I love my sport, I love my hockey. I've just turned back to golf again, which I'm really enjoying. So all of those things help me. I'll be brutally honest, I wish I could talk to my wife more, but I don't, because of her mum's situation, which can be genetic. She's understandably worried about her future, and I don't really want to give her any excess stress, because that tends to have a negative effect on mental health anyway. And the last thing I want to do is kind of give her more to worry about and end up, not having as long as I would like with her. So that part of things I tend to keep myself, but certainly that CBT was excellent, and just going and having a walk or going and having 5 minutes, which is something I don't think we ever do enough in education, because we don't often get time. It's a conveyor belt of students or tasks to do, whether you're in the classroom or whether you're in the office, so try and make time for yourself, even if it's just 5 minutes.
Thank you, Darren. Kat?
So one of the things I started doing recently is actually I use Twitter when I'm struggling with my mental health, because the first time I did one of these talks, which was 3 years ago now, I sort of made a promise to myself that I'd be more open about any time I struggled rather than just keeping it in. So I have to admit, I find it really difficult, but I will force myself to write something on Twitter. And just that process of that catharsis of getting it out makes a huge difference to me. Because it's really bad. Like I last time I struggled, I wrote something, and I couldn't message my best friend. I couldn't message my partner, but I could force myself to get that message on Twitter. And then once I'd done that, I was able to message my friend. I was able to message my other half, and I was able to let it out a bit. And it's funny because social media is a double-edged sword. I know for a lot of people, it makes their mental health significantly worse, because they start going down the trap of reading stories, reading things that make them feel bad. But for me, I'm very lucky that I have that social network of people who will support me, but also people who I don't have people who think I'm completely nutso for posting about my mental health. And then, as Darren was saying, I hate running with a passion, but I took up running. I need to get back into it. I still hate it, but I started using an app called Zombies Run. I think some of you may remember when I did the app, the Smackdown, and talked about Zombies Run.
Yeah.
It's silly, it's gamified, and it's a nice story while you run. And just talking to my friends. I have to force myself to go out the door, because if I'm struggling, I don't want to leave, and I don't think anyone wants to see me. And I'm getting better now at making myself go out, making myself do things. Because being around people, it feels like the opposite of what I want to do, but I know it helps. And I just have to fight those brain gremlins and be like, no, you're wrong. I need to be around people right now. And ice cream also.
Always ice cream. Thank you, Kat. I feel like you said that for me, but I appreciate it. Natalie, what helps you when you feel to feel less overwhelmed?
Actually, to get where I got, I had 2 nights in shining armor. The first one was my head teacher, who, when I went in, I said, I can't cope. This isn't working. This has happened. I quit and handed in my resignation. He said, don't be ridiculous. You're broken. No one will have you. You're having a really rough time. You need to deal with this a different way. You can't just run away from it. And in my life, I don't like the gray bits. So I prefer it when you just say, call a spade, don't sugarcoat it. And when he said, Nat, you're broken, no one will have you, don't run away. That was, to some people it might sound really harsh, but to me it was factual. And that really helped me to kind of focus. And so when he said that to me, I have a person. And so I text the person and I said, he said, yeah, he's right. And I said, but I can't have counseling. I can't talk to anyone. And this person, who I've known for a long time, I thought, well, I hope I am his rock. I am the person who he always talks to. But he then said, you have to have counseling. It's the best thing ever. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, and he explained to me what counseling was and explained to me all the therapy he'd had and when he'd had it and what happened and how he felt. And I was just like, oh my God. And this is someone who I respect. I mean, I really, really respect. I hold him in such high esteem. And I just thought, okay, I need to do this. And so I did. I went to see my GP as I was instructed. And my GP said, yeah, you're in a bad way. And the only thing that kept me going was knowing that actually, in all of the madness that was going on, I'm so blessed. I have an amazing husband. I have an amazing family. All my colleagues and peers I hold in such high esteem. And they all came and they said, it's okay not to be okay. And it's the same thing that I would have said to them. And they said, you would have said that to us. And I was like, yeah, I would have. But the idea of not being a rock was so hard. And then I went, and now I realized that actually I just needed an outlet. And sometimes I literally just text, and I text almost like a brain dump. And he answers. And my therapist, counselor, she tells me that she validates my experiences. And I suppose that's what I needed. I needed someone to validate that I wasn't weak and pathetic and attention seeking for not being a rock for myself. So I guess just knowing that it's okay to not be okay was important. And actually, one of the reasons that I ended up here tonight is because Kat tweeted something and she put something on Facebook and I didn't comment on it, but I messaged her privately. And then the dialogue opened. And Kat, I respect her so much. She's so amazing and so talented and so inspirational. And if it's okay for her to say, it's okay to not be okay, then actually maybe that's okay too. I'm going to stop now because I'm falling apart.
I'm not.
You're amazing, Natalie. So thank you for sharing so deeply with all of us. Yeah, I just want to say thank you. And as we go, like I have to breathe a second for that one. But for as we move in, there were a ton of comments that were coming in from the chat of support from so many people for everybody in the last two questions. So I just wanted you all to know that I wasn't popping them on screen on purpose. I didn't want it to distract necessarily from the stories that we were being told, but please know that there were a ton of comments in there, and also people starting to share some of their own mental health struggles. And we just appreciate people being so open and supportive of one another as we are talking here today. Kat, for the third question, I think some of you started to hint at it. I know Natalie and Darren both were talking about things within education. So maybe we'll start with you, Kat, on this one. How do you think being in education can affect your mental health, or how has it specifically affected your mental health?
So when I was struggling, one of the things I always found is that as a teacher, I would still be doing my job passionately. And I may break down at the end of the lesson, but I was still there for my children. But what I found interesting, I mean, I at the time, I thought my school were incredible because they knew I struggled with my mental health. They supported me, they asked me what I needed. But there was a big sort of headline of, you do not let anybody know this. The parents don't know, the students don't know. This is not discussed. This is taboo. And I did, because you're not being true to yourself. In my final year of teaching, I actually had a parent come to me on parents' evening to say that their 9-year-old daughter had just been diagnosed with clinical depression. We had some things going on in the school, including a parent dying and some horrible other bits and pieces. But yeah, and the parents were sort of looking at me with this pleading look in their eyes, saying, we need somebody to look after our child. And I managed to sort of convey to them, without explicitly saying, that I knew where she was coming from, and I was able to support her. And the look of relief on their face was incredible. The fact that they knew that somebody was supporting their daughter who understood that depression wasn't attention seeking, and it wasn't just being a bit grumpy. And it kind of saddens me that certainly in the UK, it's expected that you don't talk about it, because you wouldn't be able to teach if you were depressed. You wouldn't be able to teach if you had mental health problems, because I know a huge amount of teachers with varying different mental health conditions, and I think it makes you a better teacher in some ways, because in my case, and it sounds like in Natalie and Darren's case, it makes you more empathetic, more likely to understand what the students are going through and want to support them and be able to support them. And I think one of the things that kept me going when I was really struggling was that thought that those children rely on me. I can't let them down. I can't let this depression overwhelm me. I need to be there for them. So yeah, I think it's a funny one with education, because it is such an empathetic role, and it can, because of those pressures from wanting to be there to support your students, it can be hard and it can be full of pressure. But at the same time, it can also be the thing that lifts you up, the thing that helps you. So yeah, bit of a funny one.
Thank you, Kat. Darren?
Yeah, I mean, I was a pastoral leader for 9 years, and it's so hard not to take things home with you. You know, because you appreciate so much what other people are going through, and how some students even get themselves to school in the morning. And then you end up dealing with sort of little fallouts where people are trying to smooth the waves again, because some people haven't realised the kind of life that student's got. And that's nobody's fault, because everyone's under their own pressures. But within education generally, I know Reshma put in the chat, there's that old adage of, those who can't teach. And I think particularly in the UK, and I can't speak for the rest of the world, but there is such a culture of not teacher bashing, because that's the wrong word, but there's a lack of appreciation for just how much is involved in working in the school, whether you're a teacher or whether you're receptionist or the person who's on student services or whatever it might be. You are doing 100 jobs a day, sometimes repeatedly, and you're going from up here to down there to trying to level other people out. You very rarely get time for yourself. And, you know, if the students get great results, it's because the exams are too easy. If the students get bad results, it's because the teachers didn't work hard enough. So there's no onus on the students whatsoever. Yet there's still plenty of pressure on them because we're held to account for our results, and naturally we then pass that on to them. So I think a lot of the issues around young people's mental health is not their own pressures, but pressures that are forced onto them by us because pressures are forced onto us. And if you said to any teachers, you know, how would you like to deal with students in the run-up to exams? I'm sure none of us would be saying, well, we want them in revision sessions every hour God sends, you know, giving up their holidays or taking work on holiday with them. None of us would want that. But we all end up doing it because, you know, your performance management depends on it. If you haven't done absolutely everything reasonable that you could have done, then someone might turn around and say, well, I'm sorry, but you're not having the money next year. Or you're even not having a job next year. And it just seems so counterproductive to me you know, the one thing we all come into education for is to help the students, yet the system doesn't seem to help us to do that. And that's tough.
And I know, Natalie, you thank you so much, Darren. I know, Natalie, you started to get on this one, so I didn't know if you wanted to add anything more to this question.
I think, well, for me specifically, it's because I take it all on board. Every single child, every single student, every single member of staff, everyone who comes through my door, I take all of their angst and I try and smooth it away, make it less for them. And sometimes that's really good for them. And the important thing for me at that moment is I just try and normalize whatever they're feeling. It's okay to be really cross at teacher X. It's okay to fight with your mum. It's okay to be worried about exams. It is okay. Boys are rubbish. You know, whatever it is, you, Darren. But it is okay to feel however you're feeling. Your emotions are valid. But in that process of validating how everyone else is feeling, I then think, well, I wonder how they are when they've left my room. If it's the end of the day and they've gone home, have they made friends with mum again? Has the relationship been mended? Is it destructive? How are they feeling? How are they sleeping? And then I get stressed. And then first thing in the morning, I have to go and find that child, find that member of staff and see how they're doing and letting them know that actually there's someone in your corner and I am your safe space. But in the process of being that safe space, I haven't slept. I am now stressed. I am now worried. It's all a bit consuming. And then exactly as Darren says, you know, all of the pressures on top of the emotional roller coaster of being a mentor and a friend and that school money. There's also the academic pressures of, well, if they do well, then the exam was too easy. If they've not done well, then what did you do? And then there's the September sheet that you need to fill in that says, well, what intervention did you do? What did you do? How did you do this? What are you going to do next time that's better? You know, your percentages of A to C grades are only, you know, this grade, and what's the not, you know, the 6 to 9 grades like, and you know, and you have to, and as a head of department, it's everybody's class, not just your own. And that's huge. So there's the work pressure. Then there's the teacher pressure. And then, you know, there's also stuff at home, like Dan says, you know, your family, your kids, you know, my kids are Lucifer 1 and 2, and I have to cope with that as well. Do your homework, you know, come home on time, you know, where's your school bag? This is your 4th blazer this term. You know, there's all of the other stuff that you need to try and cope with. And where do you let off your own? Where do you have your dump? Everyone else comes and they have their dump on you, which I absolutely wouldn't change for a second. But where do you put, where do you dump? And I don't think it's fair to do it on my husband, because he already thinks that all teachers do is talk about teaching.
You're not far wrong.
I was going to say, it's the truth, isn't it?
I am muted. I was doing that lovely thing. Sorry. I was trying to block out my children fighting in the other room. If you can hear them now, it's lovely. I thought it, you know, apropos to us having this conversation. So did you just hear a scream? I don't know if you heard it. Yeah, that was
nothing.
Okay. Anyway, lovely. I said, girls, it's going to be heard on air. So here we go. So moving to our 4th question, because it felt like, Natalie, you were starting to get here, but let's go to Kat for this one. How do you think schools can do a better job of supporting teachers with their mental health?
So in the UK, there's a new initiative called mental health person. But as with many of these initiatives, it's just don't give them any extra money and someone has to be in charge of it. So we tick a box. Yay. What I think is really important, I mean, there are so many things from talking to people that have come up, but I think it's really important that schools know how to talk to someone who's got a mental health problem. And they make it a safe environment where we can talk about it. Funnily enough, yesterday I was speaking to a lady called Rachel about a project she's working on, which is a mental health in schools award. And she was explaining that it's not just, oh, you sign on the website and you've got it. You actually have to go through a really difficult process, and then you can become awarded a mental health school award. And I just thought that is wonderful, because it really gets everyone thinking about it, and it's a whole school approach. So it's teachers, it's support staff, it's parents, it's students. It's all about getting everyone involved. And then what she said is that the university she works for offers a master's degree as well, and head teachers who've done the award are then going on to do the master's, because they've then realised how important it is. And I think just getting involved in projects like that, finding out how you can support your students, making sure that it's an open, safe place where you can talk about your mental health is so important. So yeah, just a few things I think schools can do.
Thank you very much, Kat. Darren, what would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I'm quite fortunate that we've got in both of our schools a small team of people working on, not working on mental health, but looking out for us, and you know, just doing little things like making a point of popping into the classroom and asking how your day is, and things like that make a massive difference. Because teaching can be a very lonely profession. If you're teaching every period of the day, you may not see another adult. You know, so those little things are really important, to just stop in and maybe take somebody a cup of tea, or you know, in the canteen, do that whole pay it forward and pay for their coffee before they even get there. They don't even have to know where it's come from. I think it's a really nice thing to do. I think it's really important schools are careful not to just pay lip service by doing, say, you know, Wednesday afternoon, everyone's going to play staff netball, because that will make you all feel better, which obviously might be great for some, but others it's the worst thing you could possibly do to them, and that's no good for them as well. You know, if you put something on with a mental health focus, don't tell people off for not going to it. You know, it's their choice.
Yes.
You know, you can't turn around and say, well, the turnout wasn't very good, people, and things like that. And I think more than anything, and I think this is where COVID situation hopefully will help, is for schools to be more flexible, to consider things like, you know, if your timetable says you don't start teaching till 10, why do you need to be in school at 8:30? Why can't you come in at 9:30 and actually be more productive? Drop your kids off at school one day a week. That might mean the world to somebody. And that makes that person feel better about who they're working with. That increases your goodwill as well. So it's a mutually beneficial thing. But equally, I've got friends who work in schools where they are allowed to book a Christmas shopping day. And it doesn't have to be a Christmas shopping day, but one day a year, they're allowed to book a day off for anything they want, and they just set the cover work and it's done. And everyone gets that one day. So if you know you've got a big event coming up, like a wedding abroad, or or you want to go Christmas shopping because you never get the chance, you've got the flexibility to be able to do that because it's one day at the end of the day. And letting somebody go and have one day to do their own thing is a lot better than trying to cover somebody for 3 weeks because they've hit breaking point and all of a sudden those students haven't got that specialist in front of them anymore. So I just think we need to be more creative and look at education, ironically, in a more business-like way, in that how can we be more efficient? And actually, we can be more efficient by doing things differently, and incorporating, part-time workers that can sometimes restrict your timetable might not need to have to anymore. Schools with small numbers might be able to collaborate and do joint classes virtually. And therefore you can run courses that you couldn't have run otherwise, which might help you recruit better teachers or more teachers, which takes the pressure off everyone else. And things like that. I think we just need to start thinking about doing things differently in education.
Anything else that you want to add to that one, Natalie, before we get to kind of our final question? I know we've got about 8-ish minutes. We might go over a couple of minutes, which is okay, Kat. I don't think anyone's going to boot us off of here. But
I think that Darren is completely right. I think
I agree.
The most important things, he said it in, I think, 2 questions before, where he said about the accountability for results and accountability for pupils. I think for me, a lot of my actual stress about work comes from me feeling accountable because of the pressure. And it should be that leadership, some of the accountability on parents for the behavior of their child, for the lack of effort for their child. But some of that accountability also needs to go to the children because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. I know I show up every day and I plan my lessons. I'm up until 1 o'clock at night. I'm planning, I'm doing stuff. I'm pretending, that my classroom is a stage every day, is panto for me. I'm out there doing it. Hello, jazz hands, I'm here. Where are they? And I think that's really important. It's that accountability. And I would feel a lot less stressed. And I would spend more time with a kid who's a 1 to 3 kid than I would, a 4 to 6 kid, because I think that 1 to kid is probably more deserving or wanting of my time. But that, it's the 4 to 6 grades. That's what's important. But that 4 to 6 grade kid doesn't want to work. I've stopped talking.
Sorry, I was catching you in. No. Oh, sorry. No, my internet it spazzed out for a second. I apologize. It just knows it's right at the end and it wants to hurt me. Okay. Thank you so much, Natalie. I'm sorry I missed the very last word of what you said, but hopefully everybody else got that one. Okay, and our last big question before we get to any questions and any Q&A with the audience, and maybe Kat, we'll let you start off with this one, is how can we support teachers and students with their mental health during lockdown?
So really important one is regular check-ins for students who can. Obviously not everyone can do it, but I've been saying to any school I've been involved with that it's really important that you hold a session once a week just to check in with your students as a class, as a tutor. You just listen to them and play some games and gauge their opinion. We do a 1 to 9 scale, that kind of thing, just to check in. A lot of schools in the UK, the teachers are expected to call their students, some weekly, some termly. My nieces are 10 and 7, and one of them has been checked in on once. So it varies massively, but I strongly believe that students should be checked in with, where possible, once a week for one session at the bare minimum. And I think the teachers need the same thing. We've talked about this before, but it's so important just to have that opportunity to vent. Think about in your school, how often do you go into the staff room or into your office or whatever, just to have a little chat, just to have a giggle with your mates. And that's why we run our weekly staff rooms. So anyone's welcome to join them. I don't know if we have the link handy, but it's our global GEG staff room. It's Sundays at 8 p.m. BST, which is 12 p.m. for you over in Pacific.
Yeah. 3 p.m.
And we meet every week and we just have a giggle. And sometimes we talk about serious stuff, and sometimes we talk about our favourite flavour of ice cream. And it just depends on the mood of the people in the room. And that having that opportunity, I don't know about everyone else, but for me, that has been a huge weight off my shoulders, just knowing that I had that check-in. And I think schools should be doing something similar, just an optional pop-in, a buddy system, have somebody, if you know somebody's been quiet, just drop them a message. And it's just really important to have that face-to-face or at least voice conversation with people. Yeah, that's what I think.
Thank you, Kat. Yeah, so much of what you were saying was resonating. I'm going to go back and watch this recording and take some notes for what I'm going to do starting tomorrow with my students. Natalie, what about you?
I don't know what they could do for me, but I know what they could do for my students. They could reduce the digital divide. That is huge. If you reduce the digital divide and then you have inclusion and children who are included and feel valued will work.
Perfectly said. Thank you. And then Darren?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with what Kat said. I kind of stumbled across the global staff room, and it's the best thing that could have happened through lockdown. It was something I was doing with my own school anyway, and we were doing it daily. And it gradually reduced as people didn't feel they needed it as much. And I think people got more used to not seeing each other all the time. But certainly that staff room, I would say, and I know other people as well, just through conversation on a Saturday or on a Friday, been saying, really looking forward to staff room on Sunday night, because it's just an opportunity to let off a bit of steam with like-minded individuals. And I think, yeah, schools need to do that. I'm very fortunate in my school. I get a fortnightly phone call from a member of the senior team who checks in with me fortnightly, and it's a very quick chat. How are things? How are you doing? Is there anything you need any support with? But it's just nice to know that your school is thinking about you, and you might have nothing to share and nothing to say, but it's still nice to hear another voice at the end of the phone as well. And again, exactly like Kat was saying, we've been doing the same thing with our students. My daughter, however, when they finished in the 20th of March, whatever it was, she's not had a single phone call since then. No one's checked in with her at all, apart from to check whether she's still thinking about going to sixth form. And part of me wants to say, no, tell them to stick it. But I won't, because it's her decision. But, that's... Everybody copes with things in different ways, but I think, this is tough. This is tough because I watched something on Facebook earlier, and some people might have seen it. There's a dad in America who's talking about his son who committed suicide during lockdown, and absolutely heartbreaking to watch. But he was basically saying, this isn't normal for anybody. This isn't the summer. Kids aren't having a great time because they've got loads of time off school. This is not normal. Their parents are stressed out. Their parents are losing jobs. They've got nowhere near the same amount of money coming in. They can't go and see their friends. They can't go out and do things. It's tough on them, and that puts a whole load of new pressures on, and that makes it riskier to fail. And sometimes, and in this case, it's the young lad involved lost his temper with his game of Fortnite or whatever it was, and threw his controller and broke his telly. And for him, that was just like, I can't possibly face up to that because the family aren't in a position to be able to replace it for me. I've already had a new one because of last time, and he had no other alternative. And I just think that's just awful, you know, and it's happening far too often, not just with young people, but with adults as well. We've got to look out for each other. And a little word, a little wave as you go past, you know, a little text makes a world of difference.
I just want to say thank you all for sharing, and some of the things that people were commenting on, and what I was hearing too was about this idea of making sure that other people are feeling seen, and that there's like this regular check-in, and how can we as educators, if we're on the outside of this or if we're on the inside of this, help to ensure that those processes are happening for our students and for people outside of our own classrooms, right? Like, it's bigger than just the people that we get to see each day and for our other staff members. So I know that there have been some pieces that might have come up, and maybe Kat will make sure that if there's anything, I know you've been responding to people in there as well. There's been some other responses, but it's been quite an active chat this evening or this daytime if you're here with me in the US. And it seems
Steph is gone.
Continue. Sorry if I'm cutting out. It seems like this is a conversation that people want to continue. So one of the things I didn't know if at this point you wanted to put up your form and maybe talk about that, Kat.
Yeah. So as part of this ongoing project, I've mentioned my website already, but I'll mention it again. It's mentalhealthandeducation.com, and I want to a collection of stories from educators, so that people have an opportunity to share their story, and people are able to read other people's stories and identify with them and realize that it's quite normal. It's not rare for people to struggle with their mental health. So I'm really, really, really keen to collect as many stories as possible. Some will be published anonymously, some will be published with names on, depending on person. And if you feel like you'd be willing to share your story, I would absolutely love it if you could fill in my form. You can see the link down below. You can find it at bit.ly/MHIE form. You'll notice the I is lowercase there. It is case sensitive. So please, 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 if you feel comfortable enough to share your story, do. If you want to do a video submission, that's fine. If you want to speak to me on the phone and I will record your story for you, that's absolutely fine. But as many stories as possible. So the site is live now. There are 3 stories currently on there. So it's myself and Natalie, and another one. And yeah, I hope you get a chance to read those stories, and I hope that some of you feel willing to share your stories too. Thank you very much.
Thank you for doing this, Kat. Thank you for having a project that is so meaningful. And I know that you had some pivots, and I just want to say that I'm really quite grateful for where you ended up. And I think that many people are as well. So loads of positive comments in the chat coming in, just saying like, yeah, nice break. But like a worthy talk, right? About how school is going to be different. People are scared, but lots of thank yous, and that this was a necessary conversation. So much appreciated to all of the panelists for today. And thank you for letting me be here with you, despite my internet and my children in the background. But I appreciate all of you. I really do. So it was an honor to just get to be with all of you today and hear your stories. So thank you.
Thank you, Natalie and Darren, for joining us, for coming in on this. I'm so grateful for you both, and Steph for hosting.
Thanks to Steph for hosting as well, and thanks, Kat. I won't say I enjoyed it because it's not the right word, but it's been
definitely a couple of times I had a little bit of tears going on.
For sure.
Yeah. It's like you say, Steph, it's an important conversation, and it's not a comfortable conversation. Don't expect it to be, but it gets easier.
It's important to have it.
Yeah.
Really
Thank
important.
you so much. And then Darren, I didn't know if you want to push the outro there for us.
Yeah.
Head out, but Kat, if you want to say.
Go on.
No, I just said, Kat, if you want to say a final thank you. So it was you.
Just thank you to everyone for coming, for watching, and for joining us today and listening to us all. Hopefully I'll hear from you all soon.